Hey, welcome back. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I feel like I haven't done shit this weekend, and I think that that's mostly a result of the whole YouTube reviewer bracket that's been going around Twitter and now Instagram. Shout out to Josh for making that. It's like been so fun to watch people fill that out. I think most of you who are familiar with this bracket know why I'm not going to fill it out, but thank you so much to anyone who said anything nice about my channel. It seriously made my weekend. So yeah, this episode, can I say that? This video, we're going to be talking about the new Unknown Mortal Orchestra album, Sex and Food. Unknown Mortal Orchestra is a psychedelic pop, rock, indie outfit, and they had an album that came out in 2015, I believe, called Multi-Love, that a lot of people, including me, kind of thought was the shit. A lot of energetic, fun grooves on this thing, and now we're looking at this album that kind of takes the same or a similar approach, but basically just stripped of life. Honestly, this has been like one of the most disappointing releases of the year, which sucks to say, but there are just way too many sleepy moments on this record to really carry it. I mean, it's the same psych pop, kind of lo-fi inspired sound that we're used to from them, but basically a good chunk of this album is just made up of moody guitar passages and mild synth leads, unimpressive vocal performances, hooks that don't really stick. Like seriously, American Guilt, which is a track that I have my own problems with that we'll get into, is probably the only genuinely memorable melody of this entire record, and also it just feels incredibly underwritten. So I think this is going to be a pretty short review, but getting right into it, the intro track kind of set the album off on a decent foot. I mean, the glitchy intro with the strong bass and the watery neo-psychedelic tones kind of foreshadow what we're getting ourselves into in this record, sort of, before it falls off in quality. But it transitions into one of my favorite cuts of the entire album, Major League Chemicals, which is this colorful explosion of energy. This track has the most gratifying punch and bite to me of the entire record, but then it kind of transitions into Ministry of Alienation, which made me suspect that maybe this album was going to delve further into mediocrity just based on the other singles that I had heard in combination with this. I mean, the instrumentation on this thing is just so watered down and low-key. It's just like a sleepy line of synths and painfully average drumming and bass. Like, no element of this track is exciting in any way. And it just drags on for so long. I mean, I like the sax solo and like the ending 10 seconds, but why couldn't we have gotten like more of that in a greater bulk of the track? Things do kind of start looking up with one of the album's most captivating cuts though, Honeybee. I mean, the fluid and very pleasant guitar lead on this thing is definitely one of the album's more memorable moments, and it's instrumentally just much glossier and fuller than a lot of the other cuts here. I mean, there's strings worked in and keys and layers of guitars, some of which have a smooth tone and others which kind of have a grittier bite to them, and the guitar solo at the end of this track is pleasant as well. I don't think that it's necessarily the most impressive build-up I've ever heard, but I do enjoy it. And after this, the flow from this track to Kronos Feasts on His Children to American Guilt is like easily one of the album's most awkward parts. Like, Kronos Feasts on His Children is this just like rough, stripped back acoustic cut that kind of just goes in one ear and out the next. There's nothing really that I can take away from this cut. The vocal performance isn't that great. And then the next cut, American Guilt, is just like this gritty, like rough garage rock track that just does not feel like it has any place in this album whatsoever. Like, these cuts just feel like they're thrown in to desperately introduce some sort of variety in the album, but it's just like an awkward detour that doesn't really end up adding up to anything. And I do think that, like, as a single track, it's decent, and it has some of the stickiest one of the stickiest hooks, because for the rest of this album it kind of just fades into this formulaic slog of filler, and they just keep reusing the same ideas over and over again. I mean, for example, a cut like The Internet of Love is very pleasant, sleepy, kind of drifty, but it doesn't really add up to anything that you're going to remember once this album is over. And again, the instrumentation on this thing is just so painfully average, and there's just nothing really to carry the track. And this Doomsday kind of repeats the whole like acoustic simplistic approach, and the recording almost feels a little lo-fi, like it's just so rough. And the mixing on this track kind of presents another issue I have with this album. It's almost like other elements are kind of trying to make their presences known, but they're just drowned out by this stupid ass mediocre acoustic guitar. Yeah, overall this project just really irked me, to say the least, and I almost wish that I could give it less than a 5, but there's nothing like really on this album that's so offensive or like sticks out at me as deserving of a negative score, so I don't really think that I logically could justify giving it less than a 5, so I'm giving it a 5. But it just pisses me off a little bit that they're trying to make this very half-assed effort fly. It really just did not strike me as very good at all, unfortunately. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this review. And yeah, I will see you hopefully in the next few days. I'm trying to do The Voids and The Weeknd. I don't really know if I'm gonna actually do The Weeknd because that thing was pretty mediocre and I don't know if it's worth talking about. But yeah, thanks. See you next time.